Well, sun was shining earlier in the UK, but it's overcast now, so I guess just back to normal. Hey! So, in my previous mosasaur video, we talked about the rise of the basal true mosasaurs and some of their sort of diversification adaptations. Now we're sort of going to get into the nitty-gritty of how their derived descendants, the true mosasaurs, I guess. No, that does sound right. True mosasaurs. True? Wait, if it's true, does that make it fake? I'm having an existential crisis, aren't I? Anyways, onto the topic of the video. So, one particular adaptation for basal mosasaurs was thickened bone, which is known as pachystotic bone. Now, this was a kind of densening of the bone tissue that sort of controlled buoyancy when these animals were swimming around. Basically, if you... I held my breath for way too long then. Even the dogs are having a go at me. I know I'm not funny, okay? Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. So, when you breathe in, you want something to hold you underwater while you're swimming around, and pachystotic bone was the adaptation that mosasaurs developed in their early stages. Now, this would actually continue sort of in the derived mosasaurs, like this Mosasaurus vertebra, where you can see it's still kind of there, but it's a lot more spongy rather than being thickened, and that's because the sheer weight of these animals actually held them in the water a lot better than just pachystotic bone alone. And also, if you're going to be in the water, you can't have hands that were made for land. I mean, look at these would be pathetic in the water. I'm already pathetic in the water anyways. I splash around like a dog. You know, just... So, what happened is actually the mosasaur limb became shorter as these animals became more aquatically adapted. So, above me, for example, we have the front limb, which would end up becoming the front paddle in mosasaurs. And the front paddle actually developed with the shortening of the upper and lower arm bones and a lengthening of the widening of the hands and the metatarsal bones. So, as you can see, the humerus, which is the blue bone, actually becomes a lot shorter and weirder in shape, and that's because it had to develop numerous attachment points in order for them to power powerful paddles. The ulna and the radius, which are sort of those yellowy orangey bones, they actually had to become more squat and wider to accommodate a wider paddle. And the fingers actually either developed to become longer, or in some mosasaurs they developed more fingers, which is actually a condition we see in ichthyosaurs as well. So there's a bit of convergent evolution going on in there. Okay, yeah, I said ichthyosaurs suck, but the paddle idea was alright, fair enough, I'll give them that, but nothing else. This has actually led to some paleontologists arguing that whether the paddle actually evolved in mosasaurs multiple times, so that could account for why there are so many different paddle shapes. But then that opens a whole kettle of fish that I don't want to discuss today. Let's discuss it another day. And obviously, we cannot forget one of the coolest adaptations for mosasaurs, the fluked tail. Now, this is where the lower lobe becomes larger, and they actually develop a upper lobe, which is made of soft tissue. And this can be seen in this beautiful prognathodon specimen. There's numerous other specimens that have this preserved, and I highly encourage you to go and have a look at them because they are fantastic examples of how a land animal becomes perfectly adapted for an aquatic lifestyle. So now, around about 89 million years ago, we have the emergence of the first true derived mosasaurs with paddles and with fluke tails. We even have some interesting examples, including this skull that is from Mexico and represents possibly the earliest Tylosaurus. However, I'm actually a little bit skeptical about this particular skull. I'm not sure if it is actually Tylosaurus. I think it belongs in a new genus, which would then expand our knowledge on the Tylosaurian lineage and help us understand how those guys evolved, particularly in the new world of the mosasaurs. Now, this one is Ceratosaurus, and this guy lived about the same time as that Tylosaurus, but actually lived in North America. And yes, this guy actually lived in what is the early beginnings of the Western Interior Seaway. Now, we have very fragmentary remains of this animal, only skull material, but it is a very important mosasaur. It actually shows intricate workings of blood vessels at the back of the skull that would have actually helped mosasaurs when they were diving deep, and this would actually stop what's called the bends. It's basically a buildup of nitrogen in your bloodstream if you ascend too quickly, and it's not very nice. It's really not nice. I sound like I'm speaking from experience. The deepest I've gone is to the bottom of a cup after a cup of tea. And because the early derived mosasaurs were starting to rule the world, they were actually starting to outcompete a lot of other animals, particularly in the Western Interior Seaway. This was a seaway that split America in two for a very long time, up until about just before the extinction of the dinosaurs, and it was chock-a-blocked full of marine life, and is sometimes referred to as Hell's Aquarium, even though I don't think the devil was there back then, but who knows, you know, who really knows? And in this Hell's Aquarium, this was truly a playground for the mosasaurs. We had Cladastes, which was a small mosasaurine that was built for speed and actually had specially adapted wrists that helped it steer its paddles, and this made it a proficient fish hunter. You also had Platycarpus, which was a 5-meter long mosasaur, slightly bigger than Cladastes, and belongs in the Platycarpinae, so it's more closely related to the Tylosaurs than it was Cladastes. This animal is known from numerous different specimens, including one that is absolutely gorgeous. Now, this specimen is absolutely fantastic. It's a nearly complete Platycarpus, and it has something really, really cool. I mean, apart from the bend in the tail right there, which is also quite cool. That shows the lobe. That's pretty cool, yeah? Oh yeah, it's got skin. And not only that, the skin was actually quite different across the body, so it shows that mosasaurs had variable skin patterns and textures across their entire body, which actually could have helped them while swimming. Now, the Western Interior Seaway was actually full of different animals, including competition such as sharks, including a giant shark called Cratoxyrhina, also known as a Ginsu shark, a great white-sized shark that's actually been known to take chunks out of mosasaurs, and then the occasional dinosaur, which I don't think he belongs there. I think he belongs on land. There was even these giant oysters. They were like a metre long. Imagine downing that mussel. But you wouldn't really down it, would you? You'd probably choke on it. And to be fair, the mosasaurs absolutely loved it, including this Tylosaurus that swallowed an entire plesiosaur. The plesiosaur is in its stomach right this second. Probably not digesting it, considering it's dead. And speaking of Tylosaurus, Tylosaurus was pretty much the mosasaur king around this time, ruling from about 89 to possibly up to 72 million years ago. This animal ruled the Western Interior Seaway with an iron paddle, I guess? An iron paddle, we're going to go with that. So the first Tylosaurus fossils were actually discovered around the same time as the first Platycarpus and Cladastes fossils, around the 1860s, but Tylosaurus wasn't given a proper name until the 1870s, and this was given by the infamous Edward Drinker Cope, one half of the Bone Wars duo. That's another topic for another day. Lots of topics for other days. Yeah, that seems to be a common theme on this TikTok account. So, Tylosaurus. Big. The biggest ones could get to about 13 meters in length, and possibly some of the smallest were around about 5 meters, so they had a huge range in terms of mosasaur sizes. Now, there's two particular species in the Western Interior Seaway that we're going to sort of deal with. The earlier of the two is this one right here, Tylosaurus napoleus, which actually possibly includes Tylosaurus canzonensis. There's still a bit of a debate as to whether they're actually the same species or two separate species, but we need more data to actually figure that out. This animal seems to be the earliest Tylosaurus found within the Western Interior Seaway, and actually shows some interesting transition and evolution into the next Tylosaurus in the Western Interior Seaway. And that's this fellow up here, Tylosaurus proriger, which is the first known Tylosaurus and possibly the largest, with an individual actually reaching about 13.5 meters. However, there is a larger species, Tylosaurus pembenensis, which maybe got even bigger, but we're still a bit on that one. Now, Tylosaurus has got a pretty fantastic name. Its name means knob lizard, and no, it's not what you think. Dirty-minded little... It's for that thing there. It's called a rostrum. They probably rammed prey or rammed other Tylosaurus with it. Tylosaurus was also a massive eater as well. The dark blue is the Tylosaurus, and everything else is the stomach contents of this particular Tylosaurus, which includes smaller mosasaurs, sharks, and even giant fish. So these things would just go to a buffet and think, I'm having all of that. And if any other Tylosaurus just got in their way, they would be like, no, mate. And just sort of go, you're dead. And yeah, we do find a lot of Tylosaurus with bite marks, infections, and broken bones on them. These were animals that were built to survive devastating injuries and carry on fighting. So yeah, Tylosaurus, the biggest and the baddest, pretty much had it good, up until the arrival of some other mosasaurs. But that's a story for another day. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, just drop me a message and I'll try and answer them as best I can. So all you British people, enjoy the summer while we've got it, and see you later. Ta-ra.